the Philippines has long been criticized as a country that cannot see beyond its own shores. For decades, its Air Force and Navy operated with limited radar coverage, heavily reliant on the United States for intelligence. In a region where reaction time can mean the difference between deterrence and disaster, this lack of early warning was a fundamental weakness. That is now changing, and in an unusual way. Japan, a country once bound by constitutional restrictions on exporting weapons, is providing Manila with modern radar systems. This is not simply a technical upgrade, it is a strategic message. The Philippines is becoming the test case for Japan's new role as a defense exporter. The context matters. Manila has spent years struggling to modernize its armed forces, often trapped between budget limitations and political hesitation. Chinese Coast Guard ships, maritime militia, and naval vessels have consistently pressured Philippine outposts in the South China Sea. Yet the country lacked even the most basic tools of situational awareness. For all the discussion of acquiring submarines or advanced fighters, without reliable radar coverage, the Philippines was effectively blind. Aircraft could fly in undetected, ships could maneuver at sea unnoticed, and any response would always be reactive. That is why these Japanese radars mark a turning point. They provide not just equipment, but an ability to see the battle space for the first time. For Japan, this export is historic. For decades, Tokyo was constrained by Article 9 of its constitution, which imposed strict limits on military activities. Even after reinterpretations in the 2010s, Japan remained hesitant to export weapons. The decision to supply radars to the Philippines is therefore significant. It shows that Tokyo is no longer content with a passive role in regional security. Instead, it is positioning itself as a proactive partner in strengthening Southeast Asian defenses. That Manila is the first recipient is telling. Among all possible buyers, Japan chose the Philippines, a frontline state in the South China Sea, and by extension, on the edge of China's expanding sphere of influence. The systems themselves are not token gestures. The FPS-3 radar is a three-dimensional air defense radar with a range of over 400 kilometers. It is capable of tracking both aircraft and ballistic missiles, making it a core component of Japan's own air defense network. The JTPS-P14, meanwhile, is a mobile radar designed for flexible deployment, especially in coastal regions and islands. For the Philippines, which previously relied on outdated or incomplete coverage, these radars represent a leap forward. Suddenly, the Air Force can detect threats hundreds of kilometers away, share data with allies, and integrate into a wider surveillance network. In effect, Manila is moving from a near-zero baseline to having some of the most capable radar systems in Southeast Asia. Where these radars are placed matters as much as what they can see. If deployed in northern Luzon, they will have a direct line of sight into the Bashi Channel, the narrow maritime passage between the Philippines and Taiwan. This channel is one of the most important choke points for Chinese naval and air movements into the Pacific. A radar station here could track every sortie of Chinese aircraft leaving Fujian or Guangdong. If positioned in Palawan, the radars would monitor the Spratly Islands, extending Philippine coverage deep into the South China Sea. For Beijing, This means one of its most sensitive maritime regions will now be under constant watch, not only by the Philippines, but also by Japan and the United States, through shared intelligence. The strategic implications go further. These radars are not standalone assets. They will almost certainly feed into a trilateral framework: American bases in the Philippines, Japanese radar technology, and Philippine territory forming the bridge. Together, this creates a surveillance architecture that can cover the entire Western Pacific arc, from Taiwan to the South China Sea. For Washington, this strengthens its network of allies without directly expanding its footprint. For Tokyo, it means anchoring its security role beyond its home islands. And for Manila, it provides the ability to monitor threats independently while benefiting from allied integration. In short, the radars are as much diplomatic tools as they are military hardware. Beijing's reaction is predictable. Chinese officials have already criticized the growing defense ties between Japan and the Philippines. The presence of Japanese radars so close to Chinese airspace and maritime routes undermines one of Beijing's key advantages: the ability to deploy forces without being detected. Surprise, which is central to Chinese military strategy in a Taiwan contingency, becomes harder if every flight and naval maneuver is tracked by foreign radars. The risk for China is not just technical, but political. Each new system deployed in the Philippines signals that the country is no longer an isolated or weak actor, but part of a tightening coalition designed to balance against Beijing. What comes next is perhaps even more consequential. Radars are only the beginning. Once Manila can see its skies and seas with clarity, the next logical step is to defend them with interceptors and missiles. Japan already has advanced surface-to-air missile systems like the Type 03 and anti-ship missiles like the Type 12, both of which could one day be considered for export. By starting with radar, Tokyo has created both a precedent and a pathway. If the political will exists, Japanese weapon exports to the Philippines could expand rapidly in the next decade, reshaping the balance of power in Southeast Asia. In conclusion, the delivery of Japanese radars to the Philippines is about much more than hardware. It symbolizes a transformation in both countries: Manila gaining the ability to see and respond to threats, and Tokyo stepping into a new role as a security provider. For China, it marks the erosion of strategic ambiguity in the waters and skies around the Philippines. A country that was once blind is now beginning to see, and those new eyes stretch hundreds of kilometers across the South China Sea. Whether this is the foundation of a larger electronic wall against Beijing remains to be seen, but one thing is clear: the game has changed. And as always, if you want to keep track of how these changes shape the future of the Philippines' defense and its alliances, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Japan should go further and export missiles or even aircraft to the Philippines? Or is radar already enough of a signal? Your perspective helps guide our next analysis.